God's chosen ones. What God's about to do in your life will shock you. Why are you still breathing when others didn't make it through what you survived? Why are you still standing when the weight should have crushed you years ago? Why does your heart keep beating with purpose when everything around you screams, give up? I don't know where you are right now. Maybe sitting in your recliner at 2 a.m., unable to sleep because something's stirring. Maybe staring at the ceiling, wondering if God still hears the prayers you've whispered through tears. Maybe you're driving, and this voice just interrupted your thoughts like lightning splitting darkness. But I know this: you didn't stumble on this message. You were summoned by heaven. Here's what's going to shock you. You've been walking around like a pauper when you're actually hidden royalty. You've been carrying a silent crown your whole life, and today heaven is about to lift the veil. What if I told you that every betrayal that broke your heart wasn't random cruelty but divine protection from the wrong people? What if every door that slammed in your face wasn't rejection but redirection towards something your mind couldn't even conceive? What if the battle didn't mean God abandoned you, but that he assigned you to something so powerful, hell had to launch a full assault to try and stop it? You see, ordinary people don't get extraordinary opposition. Average souls don't attract generational warfare, but you've been marked, set apart, chosen, and the enemy has been studying your bloodline because he saw what was coming through you long before you did. If you feel that stirring in your chest right now, that holy trembling that says, "This is for me," type, "I'm here" in the comments. Because today is different. Today, God interrupts your ordinary with his extraordinary. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you choose to sow or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your time, your attention, your open heart, it all matters. And if this message is already resonating with your soul, go ahead and hit that like button as your first act of agreement with what heaven is about to reveal. Because what God's about to do in your life will shock even you. Why do you think your pain has been so precise? Why has every betrayal felt so personal, so calculated, like someone was targeting the exact places you were most vulnerable? Why have the doors that should have opened for someone with your heart, your gifts, your faithfulness, why have they remained locked while others with half your integrity walked through? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Your suffering hasn't been random. Your isolation hasn't been accidental. Your seasons of unanswered prayer haven't been evidence of God's silence. They've been proof of your assignment. You see, the enemy doesn't waste artillery on empty fields. He doesn't launch generational warfare against ordinary souls. But you've been under attack since you were a child, because hell recognized what heaven planted in you before your first breath. You carry something ancient, something powerful, something that threatens every system of darkness, and they've been trying to destroy it before you ever discovered what it was. Think about it. How many nights have you laid awake wondering if you were cursed? How many times have you watched others get promoted, blessed, celebrated, while you remained hidden, overlooked, carrying burdens too heavy for your shoulders? You started believing the lie that maybe you weren't chosen for anything special. Maybe you were just unlucky. Maybe God made a mistake with you. But here's what the enemy hoped you'd never discover. You weren't rejected. You were protected. That door that didn't open when you were desperate for it, that wasn't denial, it was divine delay. God wasn't withholding blessing from you. He was withholding you from something that would have destroyed the very calling he placed on your life. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. That verse isn't poetry, dear one. It's your birth certificate from heaven. You weren't an accident waiting to happen. You were a divine appointment, scheduled before time began. The enemy tried to convince you that you were a mistake, but heaven wrote your name in gold before your body ever breathed air. While you were being knitted together in your mother's womb, angels were already being assigned to your destiny. Demons were already being warned about what was coming through your bloodline. You've been walking through fire with a crown you forgot you had. Every rejection shaped your character. Every betrayal revealed who deserved access to your future. Every closed door redirected you away from counterfeits and toward the authentic calling that only you could carry. What if what broke your heart was actually sent to reveal what cannot be broken inside you? What if every person who walked away from you was making room for the right people to walk in? What if every loss was actually a setup for a gain so massive that you'll spend the rest of your life thanking God for what didn't work out? You've been questioning your worth because the world couldn't recognize your value. But diamonds aren't valued by coal, chosen one. Your worth was never determined by people who couldn't see past their own limitations. You were appraised by the Creator of the universe, and He called you priceless. Those long nights when you cried yourself to sleep, feeling forgotten, God was collecting every tear in His bottle. Psalm 56:8 says, He keeps track of all your sorrows. Your pain wasn't ignored. It was inventory, building up treasures in heaven that are about to be released as power on earth. The isolation you've endured wasn't punishment, it was preparation. God had to separate you from influences that would have contaminated the oil He was forming in you. He had to break you away from systems that would have limited what He wanted to do through you. Your loneliness was actually sacred space where heaven could download instructions without interference. You thought you were being left behind, but you were being set apart. The same fire that seemed to be consuming your dreams was actually purifying them, burning away everything that wasn't aligned with heaven's blueprint for your life. Every time you wanted to quit but something inside wouldn't let you, that wasn't stubbornness. That was the mark of heaven refusing to release you from your assignment. The persistent hope that kept flickering even in your darkest moments. That was God's breath keeping your calling alive when everything in your circumstances said it was dead. Right now, as these words penetrate your spirit, something is shifting. The veil is being lifted. The confusion is clearing. What felt like a life of random suffering is suddenly revealing itself as a life of strategic preparation. You weren't born to blend in with the crowd, chosen one. You were born to lead them out of the wilderness they've been wandering in. Your scars aren't evidence of weakness, they're credentials for ministry. Your pain isn't proof of God's absence, it's proof of your calling's importance. If you know deep down you were born for more, if something in your spirit is leaping as truth cuts through years of lies, drop "I'm marked" in the comments. Because what I'm about to reveal next will explain why your breakthrough has been delayed and why it's about to be unleashed with a force that will shock even you. The waiting is almost over. But first, you need to understand what heaven has been protecting you from. You've been asking God the wrong question. You've been crying out, "Why me? Why this pain? Why this rejection?" But here's the shocking truth that will change everything. You've been experiencing targeted warfare, not random suffering. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on nobodies. Look closely at your scars, dear one. Every wound you've carried, every betrayal that shattered your trust, every door that slammed shut when you were certain it was meant for you, none of it was accidental. What you've endured reveals something the darkness hoped you'd never discover. Your pain follows a prophetic pattern. That pain when your own family turned against you, that's the Joseph anointing. That season when you felt forgotten in the palace while others got promoted, that's the Esther calling. That wilderness period when you had the vision but felt completely alone, that's the Moses mandate. You see, chosen one, God doesn't waste suffering. He doesn't allow purposeless pain. Every tear you've shed in secret has been collected in heaven's bottle. Every sleepless night when you wondered if you'd survive, heaven was taking notes. Because what the enemy attacked is exactly what heaven wants to use. Think about Joseph. His own brother's own blood threw him in a pit and sold him like livestock, betrayed by the people who should have protected him, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, forgotten in prison for years. But here's what will shock you. Every single attack was positioning him for promotion. The pit was preparation for the palace. The prison was training for power. That pain you carry from family rejection, that's not evidence of your failure, that's evidence of your calling. Joseph's brothers couldn't kill the dreamer because they couldn't kill the dream, and neither can yours. That tear you cried when you realized people you trusted were spreading lies about you? Esther felt that same ache. Hidden in the palace, watching Haman plot genocide against her people, knowing that speaking up could cost her everything. But her pain became her platform. Her crisis became her commission. That moment when you felt completely misunderstood, when even your closest friends couldn't grasp the weight you were carrying. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, exiled from Egypt, wondering if God had forgotten the burning bush encounter. But the wilderness wasn't punishment, it was preparation. God was removing the Egypt from Moses before he could use Moses to remove Israel from Egypt. Here's what's going to shake you to your core. The very thing the enemy tried to use to destroy you is the very place God will anoint you. That broken marriage taught you to heal others' hearts. That financial devastation gave you supernatural wisdom about provision. That betrayal by spiritual leaders equipped you to lead with integrity. You thought you were walking through fire alone, but the fire didn't come to consume you, it came to refine you. Like gold in the furnace, every degree of heat was calculated, measured, purposeful. God wasn't torturing you, he was treasuring what he saw in you. Have you noticed the places where you bled the most are the very places where you now carry the most oil? Where you were wounded deepest is where you minister strongest. Where you felt most broken is where others find you most helpful. Even Nelson Mandela understood this pattern. 27 years in prison didn't embitter him, it refined him. He emerged not with revenge but with reconciliation. The very injustice that should have destroyed him became the platform that changed a nation. His pain had a pattern, and so does yours. But here's the part that will leave you speechless. Your scars aren't just proof of what you survived, they're heaven's signature on your assignment. Every mark tells a story. Every wound carries weight. Every scar is a sermon waiting to be preached. The enemy thought he was writing your obituary, but God was writing your biography. What was meant to be your ending is actually your beginning. The chapter that should have closed your story is the very chapter that opens your ministry. You've been ashamed of your scars, trying to hide them, minimize them, pretend they don't exist. But those scars are sacred. They're not accidents, they're appointments. They're not random, they're revelatory. They prove you didn't just survive, you were preserved. Stop apologizing for your story. Stop hiding your history. Stop minimizing your scars. They're not evidence of your weakness, they're evidence of heaven's faithfulness. They don't disqualify you, they distinguish you. Your pain wasn't pointless, your suffering wasn't senseless, your scars aren't shameful. They're heaven's signature on a masterpiece that took decades to complete. You're not damaged goods, you're a finished work of art. The pattern is complete, the refining is finished, the scars have healed into strength, and now heaven is ready to unveil what was being built in the darkness. Say this aloud right now. My scars are sermons, my story is sacred, my pain had a purpose, and comment, still standing below. Let the enemy and all of heaven see that you didn't just survive, you're ready to thrive. Because what God is about to do with those scars will leave even your enemies speechless. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. That restlessness in your spirit, that sense that something's changing but you can't put your finger on it, that's not anxiety, that's anticipation. Heaven is repositioning itself around your life right now. You've been walking the same circles for months, maybe years, praying the same prayers, fighting the same battles, watching others break through while you stayed stuck. But what if I told you that every circle you've walked has been carving out the foundation for something so massive that God had to make sure you were strong enough to handle it? Here's what's really happening. You've been in a divine holding pattern, not because God forgot about you, but because the timing had to be perfect. The pieces had to align. The enemy had to exhaust his weapons against you, so that when your moment arrives, there's nothing left in hell's arsenal to stop it. You thought the warfare meant God abandoned you, but the intensity of the attack means the intensity of your breakthrough is proportional to the resistance you faced. David didn't fight Goliath because he was weak. He fought him because he was ready. And you, my friend, are more ready than you realize. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a shift happening in the heavenlies. Isaiah 60:1 declares, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." That's not future tense. That's present reality breaking into your timeline. The God who split the Red Sea in half is the same God orchestrating your circumstances right now. The God who made the sun stand still for Joshua is manipulating time zones in your favor. What should take years is about to happen in weeks. What should require connections you don't have is about to manifest through divine favor you can't explain. But here's what you need to understand. This window won't stay open forever. Divine moments have divine deadlines. When God says, now, He doesn't mean whenever you feel like it. He means now. You've been circling the same mountain like the Israelites in the wilderness, walking the same path, seeing the same scenery, fighting the same giants. But this is the week, this very week when the walls of your Jericho come tumbling down, not because you shouted louder, but because you've completed the required number of laps around your impossibility. Habakkuk 2-3 tells us, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." Your appointed time isn't coming, it's here. The revelation isn't approaching, it's standing at your door. Every rejection you faced was positioning. Every disappointment was divine redirection. Every no was protecting you from a yes that would have been too small for what God actually had in mind. The delay wasn't denial, it was development. But now the development phase is over. The preparation is complete. The foundation has been poured. The character has been forged. And the oil has been pressed from your pain. Heaven is about to release what it's been storing up for your faithfulness. You feel it, don't you? That electrical charge in the atmosphere around your life. That sense that something's about to break open. That's not wishful thinking, that's prophetic awareness. Your spirit is picking up on frequencies from the throne room. The enemy thought he could wear you down. He thought if he kept the pressure on long enough, you'd quit. He thought if he made the journey hard enough, you'd turn back. But he miscalculated. Every attack only made you stronger. Every assault only increased your capacity. Every battle only sharpened your discernment. And now you're dangerous. Not dangerous because you're angry, but dangerous because you're anointed. Dangerous because you've been through the fire and came out refined. Dangerous because you know the sound of God's voice in the storm. This is why Deuteronomy 28:7 declares, "The Lord will grant that the enemies who rise up against you will be defeated before you. They will come at you from one direction, but flee from you in 7 directions." Your enemies are about to scatter, not because you fought them, but because God showed up. You are one decision away from divine acceleration. One yes away from supernatural breakthrough. One act of obedience away from everything changing. The question isn't whether God will move. The question is whether you'll move with Him. If you know this message is for you, if every word is hitting like lightning in your spirit, drop today's date in the comments right now. That's your prophetic timestamp, your marker in time that says, I align, I obey, I move. Because what's about to happen in your life won't just shock you, it's going to shock everyone who ever counted you out. The shift has begun, the acceleration is here, and everything you thought was over is just beginning. So here's my question for you. When the door swings open and it's about to, will you walk through it with the confidence of someone who knows they were chosen for this moment? Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. I need you to understand something that's going to change how you see every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every moment you felt invisible while others got promoted around you. You've been asking God, why me? Why has my path been so hard? But what if I told you that the very weight you've been carrying, that crushing pressure that made you want to quit 1,000 times, what if that wasn't punishment? What if it was preparation for a crown so heavy that only someone who's been strengthened by suffering could wear it? You see, dear friend, God didn't promote you too soon because he didn't want your promise to collapse under the weight of untested character. Think about it. How many people have you watched rise fast, only to fall faster? How many got their breakthrough before their backbone was ready, and it destroyed them? But not you. You've been in heaven's pressure cooker. Every betrayal that should have broken you instead broke something off you. Every door that slammed in your face redirected you toward a destiny your enemies can't even see coming. You kept going when no one clapped. You prayed when no one watched. You stayed faithful when faithlessness would have felt easier, and heaven recorded it all. Let me tell you about Florence Nightingale. Before she became the lady with the lamp, revolutionizing nursing and saving thousands of lives, she spent years fighting her own family, who thought her calling was beneath their social status. She was mocked, rejected, told she was wasting her life. But those years of opposition weren't wasted, they were forging steel in her spine. When she finally stepped into the Crimean war hospitals, she didn't just tend wounds, she transformed an entire profession. The weight of her calling required the strength that only suffering could build. Or consider Tyler Perry, homeless at 16, sleeping in his car, rejected by every studio in Hollywood. But those nights in that car weren't just survival, they were seminary. God was teaching him how to create from nothing, how to speak to pain, how to turn mess into a message. Today, he owns one of the largest film studios in the world, not because he was handed opportunity, but because he was forged in the fire of rejection. Steve Harvey was living in his car for 3 years, showering at gas stations, wondering if his dreams were delusions. But that season of humiliation was actually preparation. It taught him how to speak to struggle, how to connect with people who felt forgotten. Now millions hang on his every word because they know he's been where they are. You thought God was silent during your wilderness years, but heaven was watching to see if you'd worship without a witness. Would you praise him when there was no platform? Would you serve him when there was no spotlight? Would you remain pure when purity seemed pointless? The Bible tells us in 1 Peter 1-7 that these trials are testing your faith of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire. You're not being punished, precious one. You're being purified. Every tear you cried in secret wasn't wasted water, it was holy oil being pressed from your spirit. Here's what shocks people about the anointing. It's not a reward for perfect people. It's the result of pressed people. The oil that breaks yokes doesn't come from olives sitting pretty in the sun. It comes from olives crushed under tremendous pressure. You've been under that press, and what's been extracted from you isn't bitterness, it's the very anointing that's about to set captives free. David wasn't anointed as king and then immediately placed on the throne. He spent years running from Saul, hiding in caves, leading men who had nothing left to lose. Those weren't wasted years, they were preparation years. When he finally took the crown, he didn't rule from theory, he ruled from experience. He knew what it felt like to be desperate, so he could lead the desperate. The weight you've carried has been building capacity. The isolation you've endured has been creating intimacy with God that shallow believers will never know. The rejection you've faced has been developing discernment that will save you from dangerous alliances in your future. But here's the truth that's going to rock you. Your waiting season is about to end with such velocity that people won't believe their eyes. Not because you demanded it, but because you endured for it. Not because you manipulated circumstances, but because you remained surrendered through them. Psalm 75:6-7 declares, "No one from the east or the west or from the desert can exalt themselves. It is God who judges. He brings one down, he exalts another." Your promotion isn't coming from human hands. It's being released from heaven's throne room. The same people who overlooked you are about to witness a display of God's favor on your life that will leave them speechless. Not because you became someone new, but because heaven is about to reveal who you've always been. You didn't change, your season did. So write this down and speak it over your life. The oil on my life wasn't microwaved, it was pressed. I'm not late, I was hidden. I'm not forgotten, I was being forged. The crown is heavy because it's real. And you, dear chosen one, have been strengthened to wear it. But what you're about to step into next will require every ounce of character that suffering built in you. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. That crushing season when nobody called your name, when opportunities passed you by like you were invisible, when you watched others get promoted, celebrated, elevated, while you sat in silence wondering if God had forgotten your address. You weren't overlooked. You were covered, hidden in plain sight. Do you know what happens in a divine incubation chamber? The same thing that happens to a butterfly in its cocoon. The outside world sees death. Heaven sees metamorphosis. While everyone else thought you were stuck, God was performing surgery on your soul. While they assumed you were being punished, you were being purified. Here's what's going to pierce your heart. Every time you felt invisible, you were actually invincible, protected from exposure that would have destroyed you, shielded from platforms you weren't ready to carry, covered from opportunities that looked like blessings but would have been your spiritual burial ground. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before he ever saw a burning bush. 40 years. Can you imagine the conversations with God? Lord, I killed a man trying to defend your people, and now I'm out here feeding sheep. Did I miss my calling? But God wasn't wasting Moses' time. He was rewiring Moses' heart, taking a man who tried to deliver through violence and teaching him to deliver through voice. David, the future king of Israel, spent years running through caves like a fugitive, dodging spears, hiding in darkness, eating scraps. The man God called after my own heart lived like a hunted animal. But in those caves, David wasn't just surviving, he was being sculptured. Every psalm of desperation was preparing him to lead a nation through their own desperation. You weren't forgotten. You were forged. You weren't delayed. You were developed. You weren't buried. You were planted. Think about Anna, the prophetess. 84 years old when she finally saw the Messiah. 84. She could have looked at her life and said, God, I've been faithful in this temple for decades. Where's my reward? But Anna understood something most people miss. The longer the wait, the weightier the assignment. She didn't just see Jesus. She was chosen to announce him to everyone waiting for redemption. Here's the shocking truth they don't teach in Sunday school. God's greatest weapons are forged in secret. His most powerful voices are trained in silence. His most anointed leaders are developed in obscurity. Because what the world celebrates, God often can't use. But what the world overlooks, God often unleashes. You've been asking, when is my time coming? But you've been asking the wrong question. The right question is, what has God been building in me while nobody was watching? Every rejection taught you resilience. Every betrayal built your discernment. Every lonely night developed your dependency on him. Every closed door strengthened your faith muscle. You thought you were being passed over. You were being prepared over. God didn't deny your crown. He delayed the unveiling so the oil wouldn't spill before the altar was ready. Think about it. What good is a coronation if the character can't carry the crown? What's the point of influence if integrity isn't established first? Right now, some of you are sitting there thinking, "But I'm getting older. My window is closing." Let me shatter that lie with scripture. Gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained in the way of righteousness. Your age isn't disqualification, it's authentication. The world worships youth, but heaven honors wisdom. And wisdom only comes through walking with God, not just talking about him. You've been hidden because God has been holding you, protecting you from premature exposure, shielding you from success that would have corrupted you, covering you from influence that would have intoxicated you. But the incubation period is ending. The chrysalis is cracking. The vault of heaven is about to open. There's something stirring in the spiritual realm right now. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your spirit, that holy dissatisfaction with staying hidden. That's not impatience, that's anticipation. Your soul recognizes the shift before your mind does. The prophet Habakkuk wrote, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." Your appointed time isn't late, it's precise. God's timing doesn't run on human schedule, it runs on heaven's calendar. If this is confirming your secret place season, if these words are echoing what God's been whispering to your heart in the midnight hours, write this in the comments. I was hidden. Now I'm ready. Because here's what's about to shock you. The same God who hid you is about to highlight you. The same hand that covered you is about to crown you. The same voice that whispered, "Wait," is about to thunder, "Now." Your obscurity wasn't abandonment, it was appointment. And what God appoints, no man can disappoint. What he establishes, hell cannot diminish. What he unveils, earth cannot conceal. The question isn't whether God will use you. The question is, are you ready for what happens when he does? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. I'm about to reveal something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your struggle. The enemy wasn't after your now, he was after your next. He saw what was coming through your bloodline before you ever took your first breath, and he's been trying to abort your destiny ever since. You thought that depression was just chemical imbalance, that anxiety was just stress, that breakdown was just life being too hard. That was strategic spiritual warfare launched against the oil you carry. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on ordinary people. The devil doesn't assign his best demons to attack average souls. But you've had a target on your back since day one. Your depression wasn't emotional, it was warfare designed to convince you that you're worthless when heaven knows you're priceless. That anxiety that tried to drown you in the middle of the night, that was because hell could smell your anointing from generations away. They launched preemptive strikes because they saw the throne room meetings where your name was mentioned with reverence. Think about this. Why did trauma find your address so early? Why did betrayal seem to follow you like a shadow? Why did doors slam shut just when breakthrough seemed certain? Because the enemy was reading your spiritual resume before you even knew you had one. In Job 1:10, Satan himself complained to God, "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household?" Even the devil recognized divine protection around God's chosen ones. But here's what Satan was really saying. I can't touch him because he's carrying something I can't afford to let loose. That's you, dear one. You've been carrying a hedge of protection your entire life, and every attack that bounced off was proof that something inside you was too valuable to lose. But let me tell you what really happened during your darkest hour. What you called a breakdown, heaven calls a birth canal. That pressure you felt crushing your chest, suffocating your hope, squeezing the life out of your dreams, that wasn't destruction, that was labor pains. Something was being born through your pain that couldn't come any other way. The enemy thought he was burying you, but God was planting you. What felt like your grave was actually your garden. Every tear you cried in that dark season was watering seeds of purpose that are about to bloom in ways that will leave your enemies speechless. You see, chosen one, your life is the ark, and the storm had to come to float what God built. Noah didn't build that massive boat for calm sea, she built it for the flood. And the very waters that destroyed the wicked world were the same waters that lifted God's chosen vessel to safety. Your storm wasn't random. It was required, because what God placed inside you was too heavy for dry ground. It needed the flood of adversity to lift it, to move it, to position it where it could carry not just you, but everyone connected to your calling. The enemy studied your blueprint in heaven's archives. He saw the assignment written in your spiritual DNA. He witnessed the angelic conferences where strategies were planned around your obedience. He heard the prophetic decrees spoken over your bloodline, and he panicked. That's why the warfare intensified when you got closer to God. That's why relationships exploded when you started praying more. That's why chaos erupted when you began seeking His face. The enemy wasn't angry about where you were. He was terrified about where you were going. But here's the revelation that will change everything. You didn't lose the battle. You survived the assassination attempt on your destiny. Every scheme that was meant to destroy you only revealed the indestructible nature of what you carry. Every weapon formed against you didn't just fail, it shattered against the armor of God's purpose in your life. In Jeremiah 1:12, God declares, "I am watching over my word to perform it." That means heaven has been your personal security detail this entire time. Angels have been dispatched. Demons have been restricted. Attacks have been deflected. Not because you were perfect, but because you were purposed. The anxiety attacks, they came because hell knew you were about to step into supernatural peace. The depression, it struck because they saw the joy that was about to break forth like morning light. The financial struggles, they intensified because your enemies witnessed the abundance God was preparing to release through your hands. Every single battle you fought was confirmation that you're carrying something the kingdom of darkness cannot afford to see manifested. Your pain has been prophetic, your struggle has been strategic, and your survival, that's been supernatural. The enemy overplayed his hand. He revealed his fear of your future by the intensity of his attacks on your present. But what he meant for evil, God has turned for good. What was designed to break you has only proven you're unbreakable. What was meant to silence you has only amplified the authority in your voice. Right now, if this truth is hitting your spirit like lightning, if you're finally seeing the pattern, if clarity is flooding your mind about why your battle has been so fierce, drop "My fight has purpose" in the comments. Let hell know you finally see it. Let heaven witness your awakening. Because this revelation isn't just information, it's activation. The enemy fought you because he saw what you're carrying, but his season of intimidation is over. Your season of demonstration has begun. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you isn't comfortable, but it's crucial. We are living in the final minutes of a divine window that has been open over your life for years. And I need you to understand something that will shake you to your core. This window will not stay open forever. Right now, as you're listening to these words, heaven is holding its breath. The angels assigned to your breakthrough are standing at attention. But there's a countdown happening in the spirit realm that most people can't hear. It's the sound of opportunity meeting its expiration date. You see, God operates in two kinds of time. There's chronos time, the ticking of your clock, the turning of calendar pages, the slow march of ordinary days. But then there's Kairos time, those sacred moments when heaven invades earth, when the impossible becomes inevitable, when your entire destiny can shift in a single heartbeat. You are living in your Kairos moment right now. But here's what's terrifying. Kairos moments don't last. They're not patient. They don't wait for you to get comfortable or convenient. Isaiah 55:6 warns us, "Seek the Lord while he may be found, call on him while he is near." Did you catch that? While he may be found, while he is near. That language isn't accidental, it's urgent. Think about this. Why are you hearing this message today? Why now, at this exact moment in your life? Why not 5 years ago when things were easier? Why not 5 years from now when you might feel more ready? Because this is your appointed time. This is your divine intersection. And chosen one, you're standing at the crossroads where delay becomes denial. The enemy has been whispering lies to you for months, maybe years. He's been telling you, there's always tomorrow, always next week, always next year. You can change later, he whispers. You can respond to God's call when the timing is better. But that's not how divine windows work. They open when heaven declares it's time, and they close when the moment passes. Jesus himself understood this urgency. In Luke 19:42, as he wept over Jerusalem, he cried out, "If you, even you, had only known on this day what would bring you peace, but now it is hidden from your eyes." One day, one moment, one divine opportunity that Jerusalem missed forever. I want you to feel the weight of what I'm saying. Every closed door in your past, every broken relationship, every financial struggle, every health crisis, all of it has been preparing you for this precise moment. God hasn't been punishing you. He's been positioning you. But the positioning phase is ending, and the performance phase is beginning. Your obedience in this moment, not next month, not after you think it through, not when you feel more spiritual. Your obedience right now is the tipping point for everything. It's the difference between walking into your promised land or wandering in circles for another 40 years. Here's the shocking truth that most churches won't tell you. God's patience has limits. Not because he stops loving you, but because divine timing waits for no one. The woman with the issue of blood had one chance to touch the hem of his garment as Jesus passed by. One moment, one reach, one touch that changed her entire existence. But what if she had hesitated? What if she had said, "Maybe next time he comes through town"? You're that woman right now. Jesus is passing by your situation, your pain, your stuck places. His power is within reach. But he's not going to circle back just because you weren't ready the first time. This is not another message. This is a divine evacuation notice. The old season of your life is on fire. The season of settling, of surviving, of second-guessing your calling. You can feel it burning behind you, can't you? Those old patterns, those comfortable compromises, those familiar fears, they're all being consumed because God is making room for something new. But here's your choice. You can step into the new, or you can try to run back and save what's already burning. You've got one shot to cross this bridge before it's gone forever. I'm watching senior saints all across America right now who feel this same urgency. 70-year-olds who thought their moment had passed, suddenly feeling stirrings they haven't felt in decades. 80-year-olds receiving dreams that make their hearts race like teenagers. Grandmothers and grandfathers who are discovering that God's not done with them. He's just getting started. But urgency and opportunity are twin sisters. They travel together and they leave together. The window that's been open over your finances, your family, your calling, your health, it's still open right now. But I can feel it beginning to shift. The spiritual atmosphere is changing. What required faith yesterday will require a miracle tomorrow. What was available through simple obedience today might require years of rebuilding if you miss this moment. So let me ask you directly, how much longer are you going to wait? How many more signs do you need? How many more sleepless nights will you spend knowing God is calling you forward, but choosing to stay where it's safe? Your children and grandchildren are watching. Your legacy is being written in real time. The testimony that's supposed to echo through your bloodline for generations is waiting on your decision today. This isn't fear tactics. This is prophetic reality. The shift is happening whether you participate or not. The question is, will you be among those who stepped through the door, or among those who watched it close? Write, "I'm crossing over," in the comments if you refuse to let this window pass you by, because what comes next will separate those who heard the call from those who answered it. The bridge is still there, chosen one, but it's burning behind you, and the only way out is forward. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. There's something about you that's been under attack since the day you drew your first breath. It wasn't your hands the enemy came for. It wasn't your mind. It wasn't even your heart. He came for your voice. Why? Because your voice carries weight that could shake nations. You've been wondering why words feel so heavy in your mouth. Why speaking your truth feels like lifting 1,000 pounds. Why every time you try to share what God's shown you, your throat tightens and doubt floods in. Here's the shocking truth. You weren't born with stage fright. You were born with a voice so powerful that hell assigned demons to guard your mouth. Think about it. When was the last time you spoke and the atmosphere didn't shift? When you pray, don't things move? When you declare God's goodness, don't circumstances bend? Your tongue isn't made of flesh, it's made of flint. Every word you speak has the potential to strike fire in the spirit realm. But here's what happened. Somewhere along the way, you learned that silence was safer. Maybe someone told you to quiet down. Maybe your words were twisted against you. Maybe you spoke truth and got punished for it. So you made a covenant with silence, thinking it would protect you. But, beloved, the silence that once protected you now restricts you. Look at Jeremiah. God called him to be a prophet to the nations, and what was his first response? "I do not know how to speak. I am too young." Jeremiah 1-6. Sound familiar? But God didn't accept that excuse then, and he's not accepting it from you now. Because in verse 9, "Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth." Your mouth has been touched by the divine. Every word you've held back, every truth you've swallowed, every prophetic insight you've buried in fear, it's all been building pressure. And pressure creates power. You know why you feel so much, why you see so deep, why you hurt so hard when others seem untouched. Because your spirit is a receiver tuned to heaven's frequency. Your emotions aren't weakness, they're your warning system. Your sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's your superpower. And your voice? Your voice is the delivery system for everything God has downloaded into your spirit. The reason your family doesn't understand you isn't because you're broken, it's because you carry revelation they haven't received yet. The reason your words feel heavy isn't because they're unimportant, it's because they're pregnant with possibility. But you've been hiding, playing small, letting others speak for you while you sit in the back row, knowing you carry answers that could set people free. You've been whispering when God called you to trumpet. You've been tiptoeing when he anointed you to march. Here's what Isaiah 61:1 declares. "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor." Not to think about good news, not to meditate on good news, to proclaim it, to speak it out loud, to let your voice echo in places where hope has been silent. Your voice is not just sound waves hitting eardrums, your voice is a weapon of warfare. When you speak God's truth, strongholds crumble. When you declare his promises, demons flee. When you prophesy his goodness, dead situations come alive. But the enemy has convinced you that you need permission to speak, that you need a platform, that you need a degree or an invitation or perfect circumstances. Lies. All lies. Moses said he wasn't eloquent enough. Exodus 4:10. But God didn't need eloquence, he needed obedience. Your words don't need to be polished to be powerful, they just need to be surrendered. You thought your silence was humility, but heaven says it's been disobedience disguised as modesty. You weren't anointed to be invisible. You were marked to be a voice in the wilderness, crying out, "Prepare the way of the Lord." Right now, as I'm speaking, I can feel the holy frustration building in your chest. That's not anger, that's awakening. That pressure you feel, that's your voice demanding to be released. That stirring in your spirit, that's God saying, "Enough silence, it's time to speak." Your tongue is a rudder that can steer entire generations. James 3-4 reminds us that though ships are so large and are driven by fierce winds, they are turned by a very small rudder wherever the pilot desires. Your voice, though it may seem small, can redirect the course of your entire bloodline. But here's the urgency. Every day you remain silent, someone who needs your voice goes without the word that could save them. Every week you hide your testimony, someone else stays trapped in the same prison you escaped from. Every month you refuse to prophesy, the atmosphere around you stays thick with defeat. The time for practice is over. The season of preparation has ended. Your voice was never meant to stay in your prayer closet. It was meant to echo in valleys of dry bones, calling them to live again. Write this in the comments right now. I reclaim my voice. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now, because from this moment forward, the earth will know you spoke. Heaven will smile when you declare, and hell will tremble when you prophesy. Your silence ends today. Your voice begins now, and what comes out of your mouth next will shock even you. You lost time, you lost years, you lost people, and it hurt like hell. The marriage that crumbled in your 40s when you thought you'd built something unbreakable. The children who moved 3,000 miles away and called twice a year. The career that ended not with celebration, but with a cardboard box and a security escort. The friends who disappeared when the money ran out. The body that betrays you now when you need it most. You've been carrying this weight, haven't you? This crushing sense that life dealt you a losing hand. That somehow, somewhere along the way, you took a wrong turn and ended up in a story you never wanted to write. But what if I told you that heaven doesn't waste wounds? What if every single thing that shattered you was actually positioning you? Listen to me carefully. In Romans 8:28, Paul declares something that will turn your understanding upside down. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Not some things, not the pleasant things, all things. That breakdown in your 30s when anxiety felt like it was choking the life out of you. That wasn't random mental collapse. That was God breaking down the walls you'd built around your heart so his voice could finally reach you. The loneliness after retirement when the phone stopped ringing and the invitations dried up, that wasn't abandonment. That was divine isolation, God clearing out the noise so you could finally hear the whisper you'd been too busy to notice for decades. The child who walked away from faith, who threw your values back in your face and chose a path that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. praying. That wasn't your failure as a parent. That was their wilderness season, and sometimes the wilderness is the only classroom that teaches what the sanctuary cannot. You see, you've been reading your story like a tragedy when God has been writing it as a masterpiece. Every closed door wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Every heartbreak wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every season of waiting wasn't delay, it was development. Think about Joseph. 17 years old, favored by his father, gifted with dreams of greatness. Then came the pit, the slavery, the false accusations, the prison. 13 years of what looked like cosmic cruelty. But Genesis 45:8 reveals the truth. So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. Every betrayal was positioning. Every injustice was preparation. Every tear was an investment in a future he couldn't see, but God had already written. What if your story isn't random pain but sacred choreography? What if the very things that broke you were breaking through you, breaking through your self-reliance, breaking through your need to control, breaking through the small dreams you settled for because you didn't know you were destined for something that would require the kind of character that only comes through fire? The financial struggles that taught you to trust God for daily bread, the health scares that showed you what really matters, the betrayals that burned away your need for human approval, the losses that emptied your hands so God could fill them with something eternal. You thought you were being punished, but you were being promoted. Promoted from surface faith to unshakable trust, from fair weather believing to all-weather endurance, from milk to meat, from follower to leader. And now, right now, everything is converging. The wisdom you gained from heartbreak is about to counsel hearts that are breaking. The peace you found in poverty is about to calm storms in someone else's financial crisis. The strength you discovered in sickness is about to heal souls who thought their pain disqualified them from purpose. Do you understand what's happening? You're not recovering from your story, you're graduating from it. Ecclesiastes 3:1 promises, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your season of sowing in tears is giving way to your season of reaping in joy. Your season of being misunderstood is transitioning to your season of being a voice that understands. The enemy thought he was destroying you with those decades of difficulty, but God was actually depositing something in you, depositing empathy that can only come from experience, depositing wisdom that can only come from walking through what others fear to face, depositing authority that can only come from surviving what should have killed you. You are not behind in life. You are right on time for your divine assignment. Those gray hairs aren't evidence of decline, they're credentials of endurance. Those lines on your face aren't signs of aging, they're testimonies of grace. That slower walk isn't weakness, it's the measured pace of someone who's learned to trust God's timing instead of rushing ahead of his plan. The world might see a senior citizen, but heaven sees a seasoned warrior, a vessel that's been tested by fire and proven trustworthy, a voice that's been refined by suffering and prepared to speak life into dying places. Everything has been preparing you for what comes next. The pain was your seminary, the waiting was your wilderness, the wounds were your workshop, and now you're ready for your commission. God didn't just bring you through, He's bringing it all together. If you can see it, if you can feel this truth burning in your chest like fire, then comment this declaration: God didn't just bring me through, He's bringing it all together. Because the shift you've been sensing, it's not coming, it's here. Listen to me, chosen one. You've been walking around carrying shame about your scars when you should be wearing them like medals of honor. You think the fire in your life was punishment, but what if I told you it was preparation? You didn't just survive the fire, you were tempered by it. Every flame that licked at your soul, every trial that should have consumed you, every night you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if you'd make it through the morning, that wasn't God abandoning you. That was God forging you. Like a master blacksmith who knows exactly how much heat it takes to create something unbreakable. Look at your hands right now. Those aren't the hands of someone who got lucky. Those are the hands of someone who was built to withstand pressure that would crush ordinary people. You've been through hell and back, and you're still here. Still breathing, still believing, still fighting. That should tell you something. Fire doesn't just burn, dear one. Fire reveals. And now the world is about to see what the fire couldn't consume you. The real you. The you that hell tried to destroy but couldn't even scratch. You remember the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, don't you? King Nebuchadnezzar threw them into a furnace heated 7 times hotter than normal. 7 times. That's not coincidence, that's completion. That's perfect testing. And when the king looked into that furnace, what did he see? I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. The 4th man has been with you all along. Every sleepless night when you felt alone, he was there. Every moment when the pain was so intense you thought your heart would stop, he was walking through it with you. Every time you should have broken but somehow found strength to take one more step that wasn't your strength, that was his. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. God was hiding his weapon in the shadows. Think about it. Why do you think your battles have been so fierce? Why do you think the attacks started so early in your life? Why do you think the enemy threw everything he had at you before you even understood who you were? Because he saw your future before you did. The devil thought the flames would silence you. But flames don't silence gold, they make it shine. And you, beloved, are pure gold wrapped in flesh, tested by fire, proven by pressure, and now ready to illuminate places that have been dark for far too long. You were attacked early because you're needed urgently. Every betrayal that should have destroyed your ability to trust taught you discernment. Every financial crisis that should have crushed your faith taught you to depend on God alone. Every relationship that fell apart when you needed it most taught you that your source isn't people, it's the Almighty. The enemy didn't waste his ammunition on nobodies. He doesn't send his best weapons after people who don't carry weight in the spirit realm. The intensity of your warfare has always been proportional to the magnitude of your calling. But here's what's about to shock you. The same fire that was meant to destroy you is about to become your greatest testimony. Every scar tells a story of survival. Every limp proves you walked through what should have been impossible. Every gray hair on your head is evidence that you outlasted what came to outlast you. Daniel 3:27 says this about those Hebrew boys: "The fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them." No smell of fire. That's about to be your testimony. People are going to look at your life and wonder how you came through what you came through without the stench of bitterness, how you walked through betrayal without becoming bitter, how you survived abandonment without becoming cynical, how you endured poverty without losing your praise. They're going to smell something on you, but it won't be smoke. It's going to be the fragrance of oil, holy oil, the kind that flows when pressure meets purpose, the kind that breaks yokes and sets captives free. Your fire had a purpose, and that purpose is about to be revealed. Every tear you cried in secret was collected in heaven's bottle. Every prayer you whispered through gritted teeth was heard in the throne room. Every time you chose to forgive, when revenge would have felt better, heaven took note. The fire you survived is about to speak louder than any voice that ever spoke against you. But here's the question that's going to determine everything. Will you let your fire be your crown or your curse? Will you carry your scars as shame or as strength? Will you hide your story, or will you let it become someone else's hope? Because there's someone watching your life right now who's in the middle of their own fire. They need to see that survival is possible. They need to know that the 4th man shows up in furnaces. They need proof that what doesn't kill you really does make you stronger when God is the one doing the strengthening. If your fire had a name, what would it be? Drop it in the comments. We reclaim the story. We take back the narrative. We turn our pain into someone else's breakthrough. The fire is finished testing you, chosen one. Now it's time for your fire to start speaking for you. Listen to me, dear chosen one. Right now, in this very moment, there's a war happening inside your spirit. It's been raging for decades. And it's not between you and the world, it's between heaven's truth about who you are and hell's lies about who you're not. You believed you were too old. That ship has sailed, you told yourself. Other people get their breakthrough at 30, 40, 50. But you're past your prime. You missed your window. That lie came straight from the pit of hell, designed to rob you of the very season God has been preparing you for your entire life. You believed you were too broken, too scarred, too damaged by what life threw at you. Every mistake, every failure, every moment of weakness, you let them build a case against your calling. But here's what hell doesn't want you to know. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Your scars aren't disqualifications, they're your credentials. You believed you were invisible, overlooked, forgotten. While others were getting promoted, recognized, celebrated, you were standing in the shadows wondering if God even remembered your name. But you were never invisible to heaven. You were incubating, like David in the fields, like Moses in the desert, like Joseph in the pit. God hides his generals until the appointed hour. Every single one of those lies was strategically planted to keep you from this moment, right here, right now, when God pulls back the curtain and shows you who you really are. You called it failure. God calls it formation. You called it delay. God calls it development. You called it abandonment. God calls it assignment. The enemy took your greatest wounds and turned them into weapons against your identity. But today, we flip the script. Look at Gideon in Judges 6. The angel finds him hiding in a winepress, terrified, convinced he's the weakest in his family. But God doesn't see a coward. He sees a mighty warrior. Before Gideon lifts a finger, before he proves anything, God calls him by his destiny, not his current condition. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. That's you right now. You've been hiding in your own winepress of self-doubt, but heaven sees a warrior. Not because of what you've done, but because of what God placed inside you before you took your first breath. The chains around your identity were forged with words. Words spoken over you by people who couldn't see your worth. Words you spoke over yourself when pain made you forget your value. Words that wrapped around your soul like iron, telling you that you're not enough, not ready, not chosen. But here's the supernatural reality. Chains made of words can be broken by words. And today, we're speaking truth that shatters every lie. You spent years apologizing for your intensity, for caring too much, for feeling too deeply, for having dreams that seemed too big for your background, your age, your circumstances. You've been saying sorry for the very oil God poured on your life. And right now, heaven is roaring back. No more shrinking. No more making yourself small so others feel comfortable. No more dimming your light because it makes mediocrity nervous. No more hiding the fire God lit in your bones just because some people prefer the cold. Isaiah 60:1 declares, "Arise, shine, for your light has come." That's not a suggestion, it's a command. Your light didn't come to be hidden under a bushel of shame and self-doubt. It came to illuminate dark places, to guide lost souls, to be a beacon of hope in a generation that's forgotten what real light looks like. Think about this. Why would the enemy work so hard to convince you that you're nothing if you truly were nothing? Devils don't waste ammunition on empty targets. They attack what threatens them. Your very existence disrupts their plans. Your prayers shake their foundations. Your obedience opens doors they've been trying to keep locked for generations. The lies told you that your tears were weakness. But Psalm 56:8 says, God collects your tears in a bottle, every one of them, because tears aren't evidence of failure. They're evidence of a heart still soft enough to feel, still tender enough to care, still alive enough to grieve what's been lost and fight for what's coming. The lies told you that your voice doesn't matter, that nobody's listening, that you're too ordinary to carry an extraordinary message. But Moses stuttered, and God used his voice to demand freedom for millions. David was a shepherd boy, and God used his voice to inspire nations. You don't need a perfect voice, you need an obedient heart. Right now, I'm speaking directly to the part of you that knows this is true, the part that's been buried under years of disappointment and doubt, the part that remembers who you were before the world told you who you couldn't be. That part of you is stirring, isn't it? Because truth recognizes truth. The time for believing lies is over. The season of shrinking is finished. The era of apologizing for your calling has come to an end. Speak this aloud. Even if your voice shakes, I break agreement with every lie that said I'm not enough. I break agreement with every word that said I'm too late, too old, too broken. I am who God says I am, and I carry what heaven placed within me. Type truth wins in the comments as your declaration of war against every lie that's held you captive. Because what happens next in your story will prove that the enemy was right to be afraid of you. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Something is breaking in the heavenlies right now. Can you feel it? That tension in your chest, that restlessness in your spirit. That's not anxiety, that's alignment. Heaven is rearranging everything around you because what's coming won't fit in the container you've been living in. You don't have time to delay. The shift is already in motion. For 50 years, I've watched God move in the lives of his people, and I'm telling you this moment carries a weight I've rarely witnessed. The atmosphere around you is shifting whether you recognize it or not. Spiritual seasons don't wait for your permission. They arrive on heaven's schedule, not yours. Right now, there are two kinds of people watching this message. Those who will act on what God is saying, and those who will explain away why they can't. Which one are you? You've been asking God for a sign. You've been praying for confirmation. You've been waiting for that perfect moment when everything makes sense. But what if I told you the sign isn't coming because you are the sign? Heaven already chose you. The confirmation isn't out there, it's inside you, burning like fire in your bones. Hesitation is disobedience in disguise. You call it being cautious. You call it being wise. But God calls it what it is, delayed obedience. And delayed obedience has cost more destinies than outright rebellion ever has. Because rebels know they're fighting God. But the hesitant? They think they're being spiritual while they're actually being stubborn. Hebrews 3:15. Thunders across time zones and generations. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Not tomorrow, not next week when you feel more ready. Today. Because divine timing doesn't negotiate with human comfort. Let me shock you with something that will rattle your theology. God doesn't always give you peace about his will. Sometimes he gives you conviction. Sometimes he gives you holy discomfort that won't let you rest until you move. That churning in your stomach, that's not fear, that's the Spirit of God pressing against your resistance. You think you're waiting on God, but he's been waiting on you. For months, for years, for decades, some of you. Waiting for you to stop analyzing his voice and start obeying it. Waiting for you to quit asking for fleeces when he's already spoken through fire. Every great move of God in Scripture required someone to act before they understood. Noah built when there was no rain. Abraham left when he didn't know the destination. Moses spoke to Pharaoh when he had a speech impediment. David faced Goliath when he was just a kid with a slingshot. None of them had complete information. None of them felt fully qualified. None of them had perfect peace about their assignment. But they all had one thing they moved when God whispered. Here's what's happening in the spirit realm right now. Angels are taking position. Demons are being displaced. Generational curses are being broken. Divine appointments are being orchestrated. Resources are being released. Doors are being unlocked. But it all hinges on one thing, your response. You think you're waiting on confirmation, but you are the confirmation. heaven already chose you. The very fact that you're still watching this message proves something is stirring in your spirit. The very fact that you survived what should have destroyed you proves you're marked for something greater. The very fact that you can't shake this restlessness proves God is calling you higher. But here's the terrifying truth. This window won't stay open forever. Divine seasons have expiration dates. When God moves in the earth, He gives His people a specific time frame to respond. And that time frame is measured in moments, not months. Move when He whispers, act when it makes no sense, obey when it costs everything. Because the cost of obedience is temporary, but the cost of disobedience is eternal. You'll spend the rest of your life wondering, what if you don't act on what you're hearing right now. I've counseled thousands of believers over 5 decades, and you know what haunts them most? Not the mistakes they made, but the moves they didn't make. Not the risks they took, but the obedience they delayed. Not the failures they experienced, but the faith they didn't exercise when God was speaking. You're sitting at the same crossroads they faced, the same crossroads every chosen one faces when heaven interrupts their ordinary with the extraordinary. You can explain it away. You can spiritualize your hesitation. You can wait for a more convenient season. Or you can do what champions of faith have always done: trust the voice that called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. Type, "I align" in the comments and stand wherever you are. This isn't just content you're consuming. This is covenant you're entering. Because when you declare alignment, heaven takes notice. When you surrender your timeline to His, miracles begin to accelerate. The shift is demanding a response. Not next Sunday, not after you pray about it more. Right now. Because what God's about to release in your life has been waiting on one thing: your willingness to step into the unknown with nothing but His word as your guide. And chosen one, that word is about to become flesh in ways that will leave you breathless. Chosen one, I need to tell you something that's going to shatter the way you see yourself forever. You've been sitting in that chair, in that same spot, waiting for God to send someone, waiting for the right pastor to show up, waiting for the perfect leader to emerge, waiting for someone else to fix what's broken in your family, your community, your nation. But heaven keeps pointing back at you. You think you're too old? Moses was 80 when God called him to lead 2 million people out of slavery. You think you're too broken? David was an adulterer and a murderer, yet God called him a man after His own heart. You think you don't have the right education? Peter was a fisherman who couldn't even keep his mouth shut, yet Jesus handed him the keys to the kingdom. Here's what's going to shock you to your core. You are not waiting for the answer. You are the answer. Every tear you've cried through 60, 70, 80 years of life, those weren't wasted drops of pain. They were liquid prayers being stored up in heaven's vault. Every betrayal that broke your heart wasn't random cruelty, was God teaching you how to recognize wolves so you could protect the sheep. Every financial struggle, every health scare, every moment you thought you wouldn't make it through all of it was boot camp for the battle you're about to enter. You keep looking in the mirror and seeing wrinkles, seeing limitations, seeing someone who's past their prime. But God looks at you and sees a warrior who's been through fire and came out refined. He sees someone who's been tested under pressure and didn't break. He sees someone who knows the difference between earthly treasure and eternal glory, because you've lost enough to know what really matters. The enemy has spent decades trying to convince you that your best days are behind you. That's the biggest lie hell ever told. Your best days are right in front of you because now you carry something the young ones don't have: wisdom bought with scars, faith forged in fire, and a voice that can speak life because it's already walked through death. Listen to me carefully. You are not a light bulb that flickers and fades. You are a torch. And this dark world has been waiting on your fire. The same hands that wiped away your own tears are the hands God wants to use to dry the tears of a generation drowning in despair. The same voice that cried out to God in your darkest hour is the voice He wants to use to speak hope into rooms thick with hopelessness. The same heart that was shattered and healed is the heart that can mend what seems irreparably broken. You carry answers. You carry answers. You carry answers. Stop telling yourself you're too old to matter. Abraham was 75 when God called him to father nations. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to the promise. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Anna was 84 when she became the first person to prophesy about Jesus in the temple. Your age isn't a disqualification, it's a weapon. Because at 70, you don't care about impressing people anymore. At 80, you're not worried about your reputation. You've buried enough friends to know that tomorrow isn't promised, and that makes you dangerous in the best possible way. You've got nothing left to lose and everything eternal to gain. Here's what the devil doesn't want you to realize. The same generation that survived the Great Depression, that fought World War II, that built America with their bare hands, that's you. You didn't just survive history, you made history. And now God is saying, "I'm not done with you yet." The church is crying out for fathers and mothers in the faith. The next generation is drowning in confusion because they've been fed participation trophies instead of truth, social media likes instead of real love. They're starving for someone who's been through real battles and can show them how to win real wars. You think you missed your moment? Your moment is right now. The wisdom in your head, the scars on your heart, the prayers on your lips, that's what this broken world needs. Not another 20-something with a platform, not another influencer with followers. They need someone who's been to hell and back and can say with authority, "God is faithful." The same you that cried through the night wondering if God had forgotten you will speak life over nations. The same you that felt abandoned and alone will become the voice that reminds others they're never truly forsaken. You are not just a survivor, you are God's solution walking on two legs. Isaiah heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" And Isaiah answered, "Here am I, send me." That question is echoing through heaven right now. God is looking for someone who's been refined by fire, tested by time, and proven by persecution. Someone who doesn't need a title to carry authority. Someone who doesn't need a platform to have power. He's looking for you. Drop "send me" in the comments right now. Declare Isaiah 6-8 over your life. "Here I am, Lord, send me." Because your assignment isn't behind you, it's breaking through every limitation you thought defined you. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Some of you have been walking around thinking you're cursed because of how hard life has hit you. You've wondered why your path has been steeper, why your nights have been darker, why your battles have been fiercer than everyone else around you. But here's the truth that's going to shatter every lie you've believed about yourself. You didn't attract pain because you were weak. You attracted warfare because you were anointed. Hell knew you were coming before you took your first breath. Think about this for a moment. Why does a 2-year-old get attacked by trauma? Why does a child who hasn't even learned to spell their name become a target for generational curses? Because the enemy doesn't attack based on what you've done. He attacks based on what you're going to do. You were born with a sword in your spirit, and that terrified the kingdom of darkness. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 1-5, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you, before you were born I set you apart." But here's what most people miss: if God knew you before you were born, so did the enemy. He saw the blueprint, he read the assignment, he witnessed the prophecy written over your bloodline, and he panicked. You see, the storm didn't start when you sinned, it started when you said yes. Maybe you were 5 years old, kneeling by your bed, whispering your first real prayer. Maybe you were 15, surrendering your heart at summer camp. Maybe you were 55, broken on a hospital floor, crying out to a God you barely knew. The moment heaven heard your yes, hell launched its assault. Because ordinary people don't get extraordinary opposition. Look at your life, really look at it. The abandonment that tried to convince you that you're unwanted. The betrayal that whispered you're unworthy. The sickness that attacked your body. The depression that suffocated your dreams. The financial struggles that made you question God's provision. You thought it was random suffering, but it was strategic warfare. David faced Goliath not because he was the strongest warrior in Israel's army, but because he carried something the giant couldn't tolerate. The anointing. 1 Samuel 17:45 records David's declaration, "I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." That wasn't bravado. That was a young man who understood that hell's opposition was confirmation of heaven's calling. Every giant you faced has been proof of the David inside you. But here's where it gets personal. The enemy didn't just attack you randomly. He studied your family tree. He researched your bloodline. He identified the generational weaknesses and exploited every single one. That addiction that ran through your family, that poverty mindset that choked your ancestors, that spirit of rejection that haunted your mother. He used all of it as ammunition against your destiny. But what he didn't count on was this. God specializes in turning victims into victors. You're not being attacked for who you are now, you're being attacked for who you're about to become. The enemy saw the preacher in you before you ever touched a pulpit. He recognized the healer in you before you ever laid hands on the sick. He identified the prophet in you before you ever spoke a word from heaven. That's why your childhood was so turbulent. That's why your 20s were so confusing. That's why your 30s felt like warfare. That's why your 40s brought betrayal. That's why your 50s tested your faith. Because with every decade you were getting closer to your divine appointment. The resistance wasn't random, it was revelatory. Every time you should have quit but didn't, you were proving to principalities and powers that you carry something unbreakable. Every time you should have fallen but stood back up, you were demonstrating to demonic forces that you're covered by something they can't comprehend. Every time you should have cursed God but chose to praise Him instead, you were declaring to hell itself that you belong to a kingdom they can never touch. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, and against the powers of this dark world." Your battles were never about the people who hurt you. They were about the forces that used those people to try to destroy what God planted in you. But they failed. You're still here. You're still standing. You're still believing. And that, chosen one, is driving hell absolutely insane. Because now you're about to step into the fullness of who you were created to be. Now the sword in your spirit is about to be unsheathed. Now the fire in your bones is about to be unleashed. Now the authority you've carried in secret is about to be revealed in public. Hell knew you were coming, and they threw everything they had at you. But heaven knew you were coming too, and they equipped you with everything you needed to not just survive the assault, but to thrive through it. The question isn't whether you're going to make it. The question is, are you ready to step into what you survived for? Write this in the comments and let every demonic force see your declaration. Hell knew, heaven knows, now I know too. Because it's time to stop running from your calling and start running toward your destiny. You know what nobody talks about in church? The real war. Not the one with demons flying around or Hollywood special effects. I'm talking about the war that rages at 3 a.m. when you're staring at the empty side of the bed where your spouse used to sleep. The war that whispers you failed when your children walked away from everything you taught them about faith. The war that makes you smile on Sunday morning while your soul is bleeding out in the pew. Let me tell you what's really happening, chosen one. You've been fighting the wrong enemy with the wrong weapons in the wrong battlefield. You thought your battle was external against people who hurt you, circumstances that crushed you, doors that stayed locked. But the deepest war was always internal. It's been waging in the corridors of your mind, in the chambers of your heart, in the places where memories turn into monsters and disappointments become your daily bread. The enemy didn't need to destroy you from the outside. He just needed to get you to destroy yourself from the inside. Here's what's happening right now in your spirit. You're carrying spiritual residue from battles you won years ago, bitterness from that betrayal in 1987, shame from that mistake that nobody knows about, guilt from the words you should have said but didn't, and the words you said but shouldn't have. You've been trying to worship God with a heart full of spiritual toxins, wondering why your prayers feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling. Listen to me carefully. Bitterness is not your identity. Shame is not your inheritance. The real enemy isn't the people who hurt you, it's the spiritual residue they left behind. You know what Ephesians 6:12 says? For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. But here's what the church doesn't tell you. Sometimes those spiritual forces set up camp in your own mind. They build strongholds out of your memories, fortresses out of your failures, and prisons out of your pain. You've been trying to win a war in your mind with weapons from your past, but God is issuing new armor today. Think about this. How long have you been carrying the weight of that conversation that went wrong 20 years ago? How many decades have you been rehearsing the argument with someone who's probably forgotten you exist? How many years have you been punishing yourself for a moment of weakness that God forgave the instant you asked? The silence when your children stopped calling about faith matters. The empty space at the dinner table during holidays. The way your heart breaks every time you pass their old bedroom. You smile and say, God's got this, but inside you're screaming, where were you when I needed you most? And here's the part that's going to hurt before it heals. You've been mad at God for allowing pain, while using that same pain as a reason to stay away from Him. You've been angry at Him for not stopping the hurt, while refusing to let Him heal it. The ache of waiting 40 years for a prayer to break through. 40 years of watching other people's miracles while yours stayed wrapped in heaven. 40 years of being faithful while feeling forgotten. And the enemy whispers, if God really loved you, this wouldn't have taken so long. But what if the wait wasn't abandonment? What if it was preparation? What if God wasn't ignoring your prayer? He was preparing you to handle the answer. Here's what's been happening in the spirit realm while you thought you were losing. Every tear you cried in secret built an altar. Every night you stayed faithful when you felt forgotten strengthened your foundation. Every time you chose forgiveness over revenge, you were actually conquering kingdoms in the heavenlies. You are not what happened to you. You are what survived it. The depression that tried to drown you didn't win. The anxiety that tried to paralyze you lost. The shame that tried to silence you failed. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still believing. And that terrifies hell. But here's where we get real. Some of you have been wearing your wounds like badges of honor. You've made your pain your identity because it's easier to be a victim than a victor. It's easier to blame yesterday than build tomorrow. It's easier to rehearse the hurt than release it. God is saying today, I didn't preserve you through the fire so you could build a monument to the ashes. I brought you through to bring others through. 2 Corinthians 1-4 says, God comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Your mess became your message. Your test became your testimony. Your pain became your platform. But you can't give away what you haven't received. You can't heal others from wounds you're still nursing. You can't lead people out of prisons you're still locked in. The spiritual war you never talked about is this: the battle between who you were and who God says you are, between what happened and what's possible, between the grave you almost stayed in and the glory you're walking toward. If you're ready to stop fighting yesterday's battles with tomorrow's strength, if you're ready to release the pain that's been your prison, if you're ready to let God heal what you've been hiding, type, "I release it" in the comments right now, because something is about to break in the spirit realm, and you, chosen one, are about to discover that your greatest wound was actually your greatest weapon all along. Chosen one, before you close this video and return to your day, let me remind you of the truth that heaven wants you to carry forward. You didn't stumble here by accident. You were summoned by a God who has never forgotten your name, never lost track of your pain, and never given up on your purpose. The battles you fought in silence, they weren't signs of abandonment. They were evidence of assignment. The spiritual war raging in your mind wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to develop you. Remember this: your scars are not disqualifications, they're your credentials. Your pain is not your prison, it's your platform. And the enemy's greatest attacks against you were actually confirmation of the greatness God placed within you. You are not alone in this journey. Right now, there are thousands watching this who understand your struggle, who've walked your path, who've cried your tears. You're part of a family that spans the globe, chosen ones who refuse to give up, who keep believing when believing hurts, who stand firm when everything shakes. This community is real. We're here. We see you. We're praying with you, and we're not going anywhere. Let me ask you something before we close. What would happen if you truly believed, not just in your head, but in the depths of your spirit, that God's best for your life is still ahead? What would change if you woke up tomorrow knowing that every delay was divine protection, every closed door was redirection, and every tear you cried was stored in heaven's bottle? Now, let me pray over you with the same heart I'd have if you were sitting right here in my living room, if I could place my hand on your shoulder and speak life directly into your weary soul. Father God, I lift up every person who has stayed with us through this entire message. Lord, you know their names, you know their struggles. You know the battles they've fought in secret and the tears they've cried when no one was watching. Today, I ask you to meet them exactly where they are. For those carrying the weight of lost, touch their broken hearts with your healing. For those wrestling with shame, remind them that your love has no limits. For those who feel forgotten, let them feel your presence right now. For those who've lost hope, breathe new life into their dreams. God, open doors that no man can shut. Heal wounds that medicine can't touch. Restore relationships that seem impossible. Provide where there's lack. Give strength where there's weakness. Grant peace where there's turmoil. Let your chosen ones know they are seen, they are loved, they are protected, and they are destined for something greater than their pain. Let this be the day their story changes. Let this be the moment their breakthrough begins. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. If this prayer touched your heart, if something shifted in your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Type Amen in the comments so this community can stand with you. Share your testimony, what God has done, what He's doing, or what you're believing Him for. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And please, share this message. There's someone on your timeline who needs to know they're not alone, who needs to understand they're chosen, who needs to hear that their pain has purpose. Don't let them suffer in silence when hope is just one click away. If you've found strength here, if you've discovered you're part of something bigger, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This isn't just a channel, it's a movement. It's a place where the forgotten remember who they are, where the broken discover they're being rebuilt, where the chosen finally understand their calling. Thank you for trusting us with your time, your attention, and your heart. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for believing that your story isn't over. It's just beginning. You are chosen. You are loved. You are not alone. And your best days are still ahead.